Now, we all know that in both the USA and the UK, we both speak English, but sometimes we talk about American English and British English. Why is that? Well, fundamentally, there are some differences between the two, and American words, sometimes there are some American words that just don't work in the UK. In fact, some of them, they can make us laugh, they can confuse us completely, or even sound a little bit rude. So in this lesson, I'm going to talk about 16 American words that don't really work in British English, and then I'm going to talk about what we say instead. And if you want to learn even more about this lesson, there is a free PDF that you can download in the link below. Hello, you wonderful people. Welcome to English Right Now. My name is Roy Woodhouse, your British English teacher, and I've been a teacher of English for nearly 15 years. And over that time, I've helped thousands of students on their journey towards mastering a modern British RP accent, learning more about British culture, and of course, learning British English. Now, I will say this lesson was kind of sponsored by my son. So the other day, we were having breakfast, and he came downstairs and he said, "Dad, I speak 4 languages." And I said, "Really?" And I said, "Go on then." He said, "Well, I speak English." And I said, "Yep, true." And then he said, "I speak French." And I was like, "Well, you're kind of learning French." And then we had a little chat in French, which, well, turns out I think actually his French might be slightly better than mine. And then he said, "I speak Portuguese." I said, "Well, that's true. You were born in Brazil." And I said, "What's the 4th language?" And he said, with a cheeky little smile, "I speak American." And then he said, "Would you like some water?" in a very American accent, and said, "See, Dad, that was American." Did you understand? And I said, "Yeah, sort of." But it really made me laugh. And in this lesson, well, that's the real focus. We're going to talk about 16 American words that just don't really land well in the UK. And of course, that PDF is down below for you to learn even more. So first up, we have this one. Pants. Pants in American English basically refers to the things you wear on the outside of your legs. It's the things that we refer to as trousers. However, for us, pants are the things that go underneath. They are basically your underwear. So if I say I'm wearing pants, I'm referring to my underwear, and my trousers are the things that go on top. But in American English, trousers are referred to as pants. Now, I've got a really funny story about this that I'm going to tell you. An American friend of mine, she visited me in London, and we went to a place and we had ice cream. And she had chocolate ice cream. That's really important to the story. And halfway through, she dropped chocolate ice cream on her trousers. But of course, she didn't say that. She said, "Oh no, I've dirtied my pants." I've dirtied my pants. This sounds like she had a toilet-related accident. That she'd basically... You get the idea. She'd had a toilet-related accident. Anyway, people in the restaurant, they started to laugh. And then she made it worse. My friend then said, "Oh no, they're all brown." To which most people started crying with laughter, because it did sound like a toilet-related accident. This was completely a faux pas. It was a cultural misstep. But that's why, if you use the word pants in the UK, it could cause you some embarrassment. And we're going to do another one as well for number 2, and that is fanny. Fanny. Now, fanny in American English refers to your bum, your bottom, your backside. They call it their fanny. But in British English, it's a little bit old-fashioned now. Not many people use it, but people use fanny to refer to a vagina, a lady's parts, a lady's private parts. So if you come to the UK and you say, oh, I've hurt my fanny, and you're a female, well, it could be a bit embarrassing. So be careful with that one. And that also bleeds into another one. There is an item of kind of clothing and accessory that Americans are famous for wearing. It's a little bag that goes around the front of your body, around your waist, and it's where tourists usually, they put their passport, they put money, they put things like this. Now, the Americans refer to that as a fanny pack, which makes most British people giggle. In British English, it's called a bum bag. So we've got this same idea of fanny being bum. Bum means bottom, but we call it a bum bag. Bum bag. What I find really ironic about this is that both British and Americans, they tend to wear it on the front, not on their back. So I'm not quite sure why it's called a fanny pack or a bum bag. But anyway, next up, we're going to move away from the kind of embarrassing ones to ones that may cause a little bit more of confusion. And we have chips. Chips in American English refer to those crunchy kind of things like Doritos that are usually found in packets. But for us, they are the hot potatoes that come with fish and chips. So if you ask for chips in British English, you're going to get something hot and potentially quite greasy. And if you mean the other thing, we usually call them crisps. Crisps. So you get your crisps in a packet and they're crunchy, and chips are hot and warm. And likewise, that kind of bleeds over to fries. Fries in American English refer to what we call chips, those things we just discussed. So we have crisps that are cold and chips that are warm. If you use the word fries in Britain, in the UK, you will get something that is actually a type of chip, but it is a specific type of chip. They're usually quite long, they're quite thin. If you want proper chips that you're going to get with fish and chips, we call those chips, and they're usually a bit thicker. So we use both words in the UK, whereas the Americans kind of more lean on using the word fries. Cookie is that small, often quite round, sweet treat that my son seems to adore. And in American English, they use that for pretty much everything that we would call a biscuit. So for us, in British English, it is a biscuit. In American English, it's cookie. However, we also use the word cookie in British English for a very specific type of biscuit. It is round and it usually has chocolate chips in it. Yes, I love them, but my son loves them even more. So he may want biscuits and cookies. Next on the list, we have rubber. A rubber is the thing that we use to remove pencil from paper. We basically use the verb to rub something out. We rub it out. And the item that we use is called a rubber. In American English, it's called an eraser. So what's the problem here? If you use the word eraser, we're going to understand it. But this is more going kind of the other way. In America, if you say eraser, you'll get what we call a rubber. But if you say rubber, they use it more to refer to condom. A condom, which is the contraceptive that a gentleman may use to limit the chances of pregnancy. Staying in themes of being in the bedroom, I'm sorry about some of these, they're a little bit embarrassing. We have suspenders. Suspenders. Now, in America, a gentleman or person may wear suspenders over their shoulders to clip their trousers to keep them up. In British English, we're more likely to call those braces. So we're wearing braces to keep our trousers up. And actually, we also use the word braces to talk about the thing that goes across your teeth to help straighten your teeth. That's a little bonus. Suspenders. If you say, I'm wearing suspenders in the UK, it sounds a little bit different, and it's quite linked, again, to the bedroom. It's linked to lingerie. So a person may wear quite a sexy underwear, and they may have a stockings on, maybe, potentially, and they will use suspenders as a belt to hold up their stockings. Doesn't necessarily have to be bedroom related. I'm sorry, that's where my wife told me we should take this conversation. That sounds wrong. But effectively, if you say I'm wearing suspenders in the UK, my mind will go to the fact that you're wearing a little belt to keep some stockings up. So if you're, if you are, you are. But be careful with that one. That could be embarrassing. Next up, we have public school. So in America, public school refers to the free education. It makes perfect sense. And I kind of agree with the Americans on this one. So they will say public school for free education. In the UK, the free education is referred to as state school, but public school is a paid for education. So effectively, it is a private school. Next up, we have gas. The Americans use the word gas to refer to gasoline or the thing that you put in your car to fill it up. Gas in the UK is called petrol. So you don't go to a gas station in the UK, we go to a petrol station. Gas, for us, refers to the kind of thing like air, things like hydrogen, oxygen, subway. Now, subway, most British people will kind of understand, and there are some on this list that they will understand, but usually a subway refers to a specific type of sandwich shop, a chain of sandwich shops. In the UK, for that word subway, which they often use to refer to the underground railway, we use underground, or if you're in London, you'll call it the tube. Just remembered another one. These things behind me there are in the UK called curtains. Curtains. We do not use the American word drapes, although we may understand that one. But personally, I'd go with curtains if you're in the UK. It's going to be understood much more easily. And another one that may be understood in the UK, but may also cause some confusion, is sidewalk. Now, sidewalk refers to the pedestrian area on the side of the road, and I kind of get it because you walk on the side of the road, but it kind of sounds to us a bit like walking like a crab. This one could cause a little bit of confusion. The area in the UK is referred to as a pavement. I'm walking on the pavement. I'm not walking on the sidewalk. It's just not a very natural word for us to use. Eggplant. Now, most British people these days do know what an eggplant is because of that emoji. We're not going into that. But the emoji on the phone, most people know that and refer to it as the eggplant emoji. But if you want to go to the supermarket and you want to buy that specific vegetable, you need to refer to it as an aubergine. Aubergine. And similarly to that, zucchini. Zucchini is the American word. The British word would be courgette. And I know that's quite ironic that I said the British word because it's actually the French word that we still use. Washcloth in American English is that small or square piece of cloth used for washing the body or face. In British English, we tend to use the word flannel. So I'm washing my face with a flannel. Now, this one actually confused me. Washcloth, to me, sounded more like something for cleaning, general cleaning, like surfaces, the kitchen. But apparently, in American English, this is the thing that they use to clean their faces with. So potentially, be careful with that one. And finally, before we talk about some words that could potentially annoy or irritate British people, we need to talk about period. So, period in American English is that little dot that goes at the end of a sentence. Whereas in British English, we tend to use full stop. So that dot at the end of a sentence in British English is full stop, not period. We tend to use period when we talk about a period of time, a length of time. And we also use period to refer to a woman's menstrual cycle, the part of the woman's menstrual cycle. So we could say somebody is on their period. We wouldn't use period for full stop in British English. So again, potentially that could cause some embarrassment. There are a lot of differences between British and American English, and most of them, many of them, British people wouldn't even bat an eyelid at. They'd just be like, fine, I understand, but that's not the word I'd use. Things like elevator, we would use lift. Apartment, we'd use flat. And movie, actually, a lot of British people use the word movie, but technically the British word is film. If you use any of those words in the UK, they're going to be understood and nobody's really going to bother about them at all. But there are some words that I find that British people get possibly quite unfairly irritated that aren't technically wrong. And first up, we have soccer. Soccer. Now, soccer, in British English, we would say football. If somebody says, I enjoy soccer, a British person will repeat the word football. You like football. Now, there's a lot of debate over the word soccer. People say that it originated in England or in Britain or in the UK, and technically it's right, but actually we don't use that word. We use the word football because we play football mainly with our feet. In American English, the word football will refer to a very different sport, and that's something that we call American football. So I would probably suggest that even though it's not wrong, don't use the word soccer in the UK. And if you can think of any other words in the comments below, please do let me know. Another one that I find really irks British people is addicting. Addicting. Now, in British English, we tend to use the word addictive. If something is really addictive and you really kind of get involved in it and you really start to enjoy it, that is called addictive. And if you say the word addicting, it seems to annoy British people. And that may be, and in fact, addicting may be seen as a slang word or a very, very informal way. And some people will just think it's plain wrong. And before we move on to pronunciations, we need to talk about this expression here, could care less. I have heard some Americans say, I could care less. And what they're trying to say is, I don't care at all. The British version of this expression is, I couldn't care less. In other words, there is no more care that I could give to this at all. And I'll be honest, that one doesn't really make much sense to me, because if you say I could care less, that means that you have more to give. Whereas I couldn't care less means I don't care at all. And as a kind of bonus one, this word, maths. Now, this is kind of a different word because in American English, they don't use the S at the end of maths. They spell it M-A-T-H. So they'll say, I'm good at math. Math. But British English seem to wait. But in British English, we use the word maths. So we put a S sound on the end. I have heard people say, I'm good at math, and then a British person has done this. S. Math. S. Just to kind of complete the word for some reason. So that's kind of a bonus one as well that seems to irk British people. Not all British people will be upset, but these are things that you may encounter. Remember, there is a free PDF that you can download in the link below. But from me today, I just want to say, please let me know any other words that you know that are different in British and American English. But I just want to say thank you very much for watching. Thank you for spending this time with me, and I will see you in the next lesson.